Okay, sir. So, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to day two of this training session. Today, we will be covering Azure AI, which is an audit automation tool. And from the Azure AI team, we have with us CA S. Dhananjan. He is a Bachelor of Science and a CA also. And he is passionate towards AI, machine learning, data analytics, and big data at all, and has been mentoring AI Azure team for last 4 years, helping them understand the industry trends and burning issues faced by chartered accountants and providing the possible solutions for the same. So without wasting much of a time, sir. So let's start, sir. You can take over. Okay, sir.
Sure. Thank you very much, sir. Thanks for your kind words. And now I'll just start by sharing the screen. Just one moment, please. The agenda for today is it has become a training session of Azure AI Audit Automation tool. So, considering the time availability, I have structured it in such a way that for the initial 10 minutes, I'll just narrate the background and the niche segment of a CA firm's problems that the team at Azure is trying to solve, and how it has decided and reached that stage, how it has decided to take up this problem. And then I'll just dive into the utility and demonstrate how this tool actually solves these problems which are relevant for a chartered accountant firm. So basically, while doing the due diligence for deciding to set up a tool for chartered accountants, initially the team investigated, and there is a necessity to zero down on a core niche of the problem statement, because the landscape of problems for chartered accountancy firms is so huge, and different segments of a CA firm have different types of problems as well. So based on our the assessment of the team, it was decided to exclude the top 1% of the CA firms who are actually multinational firms having their own, predominantly auditing the listed entities or large corporations which have their own CFOs and experience in the team. So, and most of these top tier firms, they have their own network with multinational CA firms who have invested heavily on generating technology for their own use. So our focus is on the balance 99% of the chartered accountancy firms who are practically called the small medium practitioner firms. And a substantial portion of them are proprietorship entities or small firms with two, three, four partners, CFOs. And a large chunk of these firms actually engage in what is called as a traditional CA practice. So some portion of audit, tax filing, indirect tax, and so on. And our focus is to provide a viable and affordable technology solution to solve the problem of these small and medium practitioner CFOs. So that was the focus of the team at Azure. And while doing the due diligence, the team has analyzed the traditional practice areas of a small medium practitioner firm. So the first segment is personal IT returns. Naturally, many of the traditional practice firms, they handle personal IT returns for individuals and HFs and so on. So this is an extremely low complexity work with AIS, TAS, and all. Bulk of the income gets auto-populated. So it has become even more less complex. And there are settled tools available to handle this. So that is not, so that segment has been excluded from the scope of our purview. Next is the recurring compliance assignment like GST, TDS, project reports, and so on. So here also there are, it is either low or medium complexity, depending on the size of the entity. And here also there are already settled tools which are available that predominantly solves these problems in a decent fashion. And the next area is annual audit of non-corporate and corporate entities. So this is basically a segment with medium to high complexity, depending on the size of the entity. So predominantly this workflow is dependent on Excel, Word, and Outlook. So financial statements gets exported from the accounting application prepared in Excel, and reports are generated in Word, client communication happening through Outlook, Gmail, and all. And there are multitude of tasks that go as part of this annual audit workflow. And here we found there is substantial scope for automation, and there is enormous scope for substantial reduction of time and effort. And the last is listed company audit, which is a very high complexity. predominantly dominated by large CA firms. Currently, our focus is not in this area. So our core focus is to automate the annual audit segment of a traditional CA firm, which is a small medium practitioner CA firm. So generally, for due diligence, we have taken some 5 sample CA firms for the purpose of our evaluation, proprietorship to some 4 or 5 partner CA firms. So typically, 2 or 3 partner CA firms have some 100 annual audit clients, out of which almost 40-50% will be proprietorship and partnership entities. Percentages may vary, but this has been the findings based on our evaluation of some 5 CA firms for the purpose of due diligence. Some 20-40% may be small private companies, and some 10-20 in terms of numbers, I am saying, will be large private companies, say 100 plus crore turnover, and a small fraction of listed entities. And the uniqueness of this segment is that many of the SME clients require considerable help of the chartered accountant and their team members for carrying out their own tasks. So I get a comment that it is not clearly audible. So I believe I am audible now. So anybody having the same problem, please type in the Q&A button so that I can try different sources and so on. So I was just stating that most of the SME clients require the help of chartered accountant and their team members for performing various basic tasks which are supposed to be the domain of the client, like preparation of financial statements, doing the validations and so on, data validation and so on. So because of lack of domain expertise in that area, they need the help of chartered accountants, and because of which substantial time is spent by the chartered accountant firm for handling these areas. So while going forward, we also try to analyze what is the regulatory expectation in the audit landscape and what exactly is the reality on the ground. So the regulatory expectation is that clients will have absolute wherewithal, manpower, with knowledge of all the accounting standard, Ind AS, compliance, and so on, company law provisions, so that they will be able to compile the financial statements with all necessary disclosures, standard compliances, everything, and then present it to the statutory auditor for their report. So this is generally the regulatory expectation, and based on which any regulator like peer review, NAFRA and all, so their entire focus is that once the client has done all these things, the chartered accountant is expected to comply with the audit standards and maintain the documentation in line with the standards. So that is the regulatory expectation. But on the ground, reality is quite different. So SME clients, they are only good at their own domain. They have very little awareness and knowledge of accounting, audit, compliance. And there is a lack of understanding of various applicable accounting standards, Ind AS, company law requirements, and so on. So they need substantial help of their chartered accountant and the team members for most of these tasks. So that is the reality on the ground. And while doing the analysis, we realized that one of the burning issue in this area is audit documentation. So with the advent of NAFRA and all this domain in the audit area that has assumed significant importance over the last quite a few years. And traditionally, the approach of SMPCA firms have been that these auditing standards are generally for guidance in the performance of audits. It may not be required to demonstrate through documentation that they have complied with these auditing standards. So that has been the traditional assumption on the part of the chartered accountant, especially small medium practitioner firms. This was further put across by our doyen Y.H. Malekam in his response to one of the NAFRA documentation. So he categorically mentioned that what is needed is a recognition by the regulatory authority that auditing standards should be more in the nature of guidance rather than a matter of mandatory compliance. So this has been the fulcrum of dispute between the regulators and the chartered accountants as far as the proceedings before NAFRA is concerned. So auditing is more of an art than science and should involve high degree of judgment rather than a mere checklist approach, which will be self-defeating. So this has been from the words of our doyen Y.H. Malekam. But then what happened subsequently is that NAFRA has rejected many of these arguments that were put forth by uh, the parties that confronted the DEFRA review. And eventually now it has become settled law that what is not documented is presumed as not done. So audit documentation is an inevitability nowadays. But then while we evaluate the SMP firms audit documentation, we just categorize them into 5 segments. So there are a small fraction of the CA firm who typically maintain comprehensive audit documentation for all their audit assignments. So that is a small fraction. The next comes firms that maintain comprehensive documentation for their large clients. So they maintain some threshold 100 crore turnover or something, and then they maintain comprehensive documentation. For rest of the clients, they have some minimum checklist compliance procedure. The next is where generally they complete the regular filing work during the peak audit season and then come back during the lean season, November, December, and all, and take up the documentation effort during that period. And some of the firms, they maintain only basic documentation like engagement, MRL and all, do not go into extensive documentation that is required. And some of the firms, they not even bother to maintain any type of documentation. So while we investigate the reason why the firms are finding it difficult to maintain the kind of rigorous documentation that is required, so we realized that the significant amount of time that takes place during the peak audit season. So generally annual audit is a 4 or 5 month scenario. So during the time, substantial amount is spent on the pre-audit work, like preparation of financials, data validation, and so on. So many of these are supposed to be the domain of the client, but then because clients are not able, chartered accountants are trained to carry out these things, and a substantial amount of time is getting saved. So our finding is that unless we automate and substantial time and effort from these mundane tasks, so it will not be possible for the CA firms to maintain the kind of rigorous documentation that is expected by the regulators. So we inflicting more and more documentation on the firms is only going to be counterproductive. So that has been the initial finding that we got. And we just analyzed some of the areas where substantial time savings is possible through automation. So there are several tasks as part of the audit, pre-audit segment, like say opening balance verification, aging analysis. So there are many areas where, for example, opening balance verification in a traditional way, where we compare the previous year closing balance sheet and convert it into a trial balance and map it to current year opening balance, may probably take 15 minutes, and in large case, it may take 2 or 3 hours also. But in the automation, we can get it done in a single click. Similarly, aging analysis. So it can take up to minimum of 30 minutes if the aging is properly done in the accounting application. If it is not properly done, assuming there are some 1,000 vendor customer ledgers where the one-to-one matching is not done, so then it can take up to several man hours as well. So whereas in automated way, we can get it done in a single click. So likewise, we have just estimated the effort involved and the potential time savings. So we realized that during the 4 or 5 months time, so there is as much as 1,500 man hours saving is possible by automating this segment of the pre-audit workflow. So our decision in this regard is that initially, before providing a comprehensive audit documentation solution, we need to automate and save time in this pre-audit segment. Only then providing a documentation tool will be effective. That has been the finding that we came across after the due diligence. So based on which we just realized and zeroed down on the niche target customer profile. So this tool is ideally meant for small, medium practitioners, chartered accountancy firms. A large section of their client annual audit clients are generally small, medium enterprises maintaining their books in Tally software. So initially we have taken this use case. The tool is fully integrated with Tally. I will be demonstrating how the data gets ingested into the cloud. And for the recently, a Zoho Books integration, a beta version was also released for clients in other accounting or ERP systems. So because every CFM has got some 5% of the clients in either SAP, Oracle, Navision, and so on. So for the other clients, there is a Excel trial balance import feature that is being made available currently. So with which the users can import a trial balance in Excel and use most of the functionality of the application. And now I just list down the problems in a CA firm that we try to solve using technology. The first one is the complexity of financial statement preparation. So because clients are not having the wherewithal, this task eventually falls on the chartered accountant, and chartered accountant user spends considerable amount of man hours for getting this thing done. This should be the ideal starting point for an audit, but then substantial amount of time is spent on these basic tasks. Number two, the enormous amount of documentation that is required as part of compliance to audit standards. How to make it much more simpler and user friendly. So that is the next problem we try to solve. Shortage of skilled manpower, especially in small, medium practitioner CA firms, there is a persistent shortage of skilled manpower. So we just focus on how to optimally use the skilled resource that is available by de-skilling many of the tasks, automating some of them, thereby saving time, so that skilled team members focus only on critical areas of the audit. Multi-point data entry. So there is a great deal of data entry that goes into the audit workflow for ITR filing, tax audit, and so on. How we can minimize the data entry to the extent possible. Number five, inefficiency in client collaboration and communication. So client communications are predominantly in Excel, Word, or Outlook, email, and so on. So here there is a given the kind of cloud infrastructure that has developed over the past decade. So there is a serious possibility of making it much more efficient and professional. And they provide a framework for managing, allocating work to the team members, monitoring the target dates and due dates efficiently. So these are all our core focus areas. Objective is to save time primarily from the pre-audit and audit segments. Next focus area is to reduce the risk for a chartered accountant. And thirdly, to enhance efficiency. So these are all the three core objectives of the application. So with this introduction, now I will just dive into the utility and take you through the functionalities of the application. The first problem statement I take is the complexity of financial reporting, that is the financial statement preparation. How through Assure AI, we are able to generate statutorily compliant financial statements in under 15 minutes time, while it takes several man hours while done in an Excel-based environment. So the problem in a manual Excel-based environment is that every time we need to create things from scratch, export an Excel trial balance, do cell references, and so on. Managing changes during the course of audit is again a pain point. Any cell reference risk is again a serious risk. And adding fuel to the fire is the recent amendments of Schedule 3, where multi-tiered aging analysis, ratio analysis, so many additional disclosure requirements were brought in, whereby it is no longer possible to complete the financial statement from a trial balance. You need to drill down up to the voucher level details so as to compile the financial statement. And on top of it, there are numerous mandatory disclosures like AS disclosure, Schedule 3 disclosures, and all. And as we discussed, clients do not have the wherewithal to perform this complex task. So with this, now I will just dive into the utility and take you through the functionalities of the application one by one. So before going into the chartered accountant's user interface, so this is the application where the chartered accountant user can create any type of assignment and allocate work to the team members and monitor the progress of the work. And the first problem we have taken is the preparation of financial statements. So this is the landing page for the annual audit. So bulk of these tasks, preliminary tasks, statement preparation, field work, these are part of the pre-audit segment, and the audit program automation. So that is part of the typical audit standard checklist. So I'll be covering each and every segment of the tool quite extensively over the next 1 hour time. So the first, considering the clients are connected. So before going into the chartered accountant user interface, so first I would like to explain that the clients of the chartered accountants, so they are given the login credentials. So meaning that so they will be able to participate and perform their side of the activity. So in order to eliminate the need for frequent exchange of emails, whatever other modes of communication. So here anything and everything related to a particular assignment, so gets communicated instantly across the secure cloud interface. So there are 4 functionalities available in the client user interface. I am just sharing now the user interface pertaining to a CA client. So the clients will be able to upload their books of accounts from the cloud. From there, and they will be able to upload the books of accounts. So instantly, an automated mail will go to the chartered accountant intimating that so-and-so client has uploaded the books of accounts from their side, and the chartered accountant can take over the audit and proceed with the work. That is number one. Number two, clients will be able to respond to whatever audit queries or issues raised as part of the assignment. The chartered accountants can keep on raising all the audit queries as part of the assignments, and the clients will be able to have a real-time view of these audit queries. They can resolve it, add any attachment evidence, everything is possible. Third feature is there is a doc request module which is intended to make the audit entirely paperless. So all the audit documents like bank statements, reconciliations, confirmations, everything gets captured through the secure cloud interface. Chartered accountants simply log a doc request. Clients can scan and upload those documents, which will be permanently maintained in the cloud. And besides, there are certain features as part of the engagement documentation for which action point actually lies with the client. For example, in the preliminary engagement, initiation of the assignment, the client need to file a letter seeking the consent of the auditor, and the auditor appointment letter need to be issued, auditor appointment resolution of the board or AGM. Engagement letter need to be countersigned by the client, internal financial control engagement letter to be countersigned, MRL to be issued. So there are several tasks as part of the audit workflow where action point lies with the client. So all these actions will also be capable of being performed from the client user interface. So these are all the limited functionalities available in the client user interface, while there are host of other features available in the chartered accountant user interface. So I just now switch it over to the chartered accountant user interface here. So in the first segment, I will just cover the financial statement preparation, which will cover these preliminary tasks and statement preparation one by one. And then I'll just dive into further progress of field work, audit, documentation, and so on. So once the client uploads their books of accounts, so if it is a tally data, they will upload the tally data. So then it will be capable of being downloaded from this download books of accounts button. So this is a tally data that has been uploaded by the client, which will be available for a download. So this tally data need to be opened in Tally. So in Tally, we have developed a plugin through which the entire books of accounts will get converted into a JSON file in a single click. So this is a single click operation using which the entire books of accounts comprising of everything that is required for rebuilding the books of accounts into the cloud. So the idea is to reconstruct the books in entirety in the cloud environment so that we can leverage the power of cloud computing to extract whatever analysis, aging analysis, ledger scrutiny, sample selection. So everything becomes possible once we have the entire books duly structured and readily available in the cloud platform. So basically we capture 5-6 parameters here. One is the chart of accounts of the client, all the voucher types, opening trial balance, closing trial balance, all the transaction vouchers, purchase, sales, journal, receipt, payment. So every voucher gets transported into this JSON in a single click. And also the due dates for receivable and payable transactions. So that is required for us to automate the aging analysis report for Schedule 3. So this is one of the core USP of our product, whereas we have the entire books of accounts really structured and readily available in the cloud. That enables us to provide whatever analytics or report that is required for the purpose of both pre-audit as well as during the course of audit. So once the books of accounts, that is the JSON file is ready, then we can import this file into the cloud using this import books of accounts button. So here there are 3 options. For Tally clients, we simply import the JSON we just now created. So it will automatically fetch the entire data and bring it inside the cloud. That is number 1. Number 2, for Zoho books, we need to create a one-time setup activity for the client. So we need to establish the API connectivity. So once that is done, then seamlessly data will flow from Zoho API to Azure API. For other clients, for SAP, Oracle, or whatever other clients, currently we provide a Excel trial balance import, using which most of the functionalities of the application can be used, barring certain features which are dependent on transaction vouchers, like voucher sampling and all. So these may not work. Barring that, you will be able to use most of the functionalities of the application using trial balance import. So once the books of accounts is so imported, then there are certain preliminary data validation checks which are performed by the system. These are entirely automated checks to ensure books are free from certain elementary or fundamental errors. There are some three types of validation checks that are performed here. Number one, whether the trial balance is matching or not. Even this could be a question mark in some SME cases that is verified here. Number two, opening balances. So instantly system will compile the current year opening balance of the current year accounting application with the previous year final figures of the previous year closing balance. So once the tool is being used for generating the financials, so whatever numbers available in Assure, they are the final figures. So previous year final figures of the closing balance is compared with current year opening balance that is imported from the accounting application, and the system will generate a variance report like this. So these are all manually. If we do, this will take several man hours or sometimes maybe quickly, but then here these are single click operations. Number three, there is one more elementary check called negative cash balance. So due to some data entry error, intermittently cash book showing negative balance. So all these are elementary errors generally committed by small clients. So all these errors are pointed out at the threshold so that chartered accountant users can immediately call for rectifying the data and upload the corrected data. So once this validation is complete, then there is a one-time activity called ledger classification. So generally this is done in Excel where the user actually exports a trial balance from Excel, trial balance from Tally or whatever be the accounting application, and manually do the grouping, put cell references and so on. This is not only laborious and time consuming, but also is prone for human errors in terms of classification errors and so on. So here we try to automate this to a great extent using two approaches. One is a rule-based approach, the other is based on machine learning. So the rule-based approach where there are several built-in rules and which are configurable as such. So every CA firm will have the flexibility to configure their own rules. So these rules will enable the system to understand the nature of a ledger while importing into the application and automatically classify those ledgers into appropriate heads and subheads. So that is the idea whereby bulk of the ledger grouping becomes automated. So there are multiple different types of rules, ledger level rules, group level rules based on ledger name, based on group name and so on. So I will just take a couple of minutes in explaining the logic behind this. Imagine, for example, Tally group level rules. Imagine a ledger under the group current liabilities. So imagine a Tally client. So where under the group current liabilities, there is a ledger with credit closing balance. Okay, the credit vouchers in that ledger are predominantly going under purchase group in Tally. Okay, it can automatically go to creditor for goods. Similarly, flip side of this is current liabilities ledgers with the debit closing balance. Credit vouchers falling under purchase group should go to advance for materials. So likewise, you can create any number of rules, and there are multiple rules which are pre-configured that will help in quickly automating this. Number two, so based on ledger name. So if the name contains a particular text, so it can be grouped to an appropriate head. That is also possible. Based on group name. So if the group name containing, say, bank accounts or group name containing cash balance, so it should go to cash on hand, balance in banks, and so on. So likewise, depending on the either the name of the ledger or name of the Tally group or name of the or the nature of a ledger, whether it is a whether the predominant character of the transactions in that ledger is either under purchase or indirect expense or direct expense. So depending on this, the system will automatically classify those ledgers to appropriate heads. So that is the stuff based on the rule engine. So that is auto mapping using rule engine. So other approach is using machine learning, where a CFM assuming a CFM has got some 100 clients, they have finalized the balance sheet for first 10 clients in Assure. So obviously there is a pattern that is available in the mapping that has been confirmed by the CA firm. So that pattern will be leveraged and used for mapping the 11th client and so on. So these are all the two approaches using which we predominantly automate this financial statement grouping exercise. So right now I'll just demonstrate how this actually works. Right now you will see only 0 ledgers out of 1350 ledgers are mapped. I am running the auto mapping feature here. So it is asking whether you would like to enhance coverage using machine learning. I am just selecting yes. So in this split second time, what happens is system has scanned the JSON file, running into some 1 lakh line items, and identified those ledgers which are matching to the rule that we have created. So out of this 1,350, 1,301 ledgers are pre-mapped, out of which 222 ledgers are mapped using machine learning, rest of the ledgers using whatever built-in rule engine that are provided. So this way, almost 90-95% of the ledger grouping is entirely automated. Hardly you are left with some 50 ledgers for manual mapping, probably 15-20 minutes that can be completed. And if we go to the second year onwards, even this all these 1,350 ledgers will be pre-mapped. Only new ledgers require manual mapping. Even then, auto mapping will cover a sizable portion. So hardly you are left with some 10-20 ledgers where mapping will be required. So the outcome of this procedure is, even for a large client, it's a 5,000 ledgers, a 500 crore turnover and all. Even in such a case, your financials are ready in under 15 minutes time. So that is the power of automation our users were able to witness using this application. So once the ledger classification is done, then there is a control procedure called ledger reconciliation. So this is just a control procedure, entirely automated. You need to simply confirm and proceed. So the idea is that we need an absolute assurance that there is absolutely no error that has surfaced during the data import. So there are multiple tools that are getting integrated. So even due to some technical reason, even if one voucher is omitted to be missed out, so then there is a risk of the financial statement showing a wrong figure. So that cannot be allowed under any circumstances. So we have a control procedure called ledger reconciliation here. What happens in this procedure is that once we initiate a voucher import, then system will automatically rebuild the books of accounts inside Assure. So it will post all the chart of accounts ledgers in a table, and it will also post all the opening balances, automatically also post the transaction vouchers as well. And the system will arrive at a Assure trial balance. So that Assure trial balance will contain the closing balance, that is a summation of opening balance and transactions debit credit for the year, based on which Assure trial balance will be arrived. That Assure trial balance will be compared with the tally trial balance or accounting application trial balance, and this reconciliation statement will be passed. So once this is passed, this gives an absolute assurance that the financial statements which is generated are exactly as per the underlying books of accounts. So there is absolutely no error during the course of data import. Every voucher, so this gives a comfort that every voucher that is there in the accounting application, everything is seamlessly imported into the application. So that is as far as ledger reconciliation is concerned. The next is a version history, which is intended to keep a track of the changes that happens during the course of audit. So because there will be multiple iterations to the underlying accounting application, because there will be several audit entries that will be suggested as part of the audit by the chartered accountant or their team members, or the client themselves will identify certain points, and then they keep making the changes during the course of audit, so that multiple iterations of the data getting imported into the application. So the risk here is that, assuming there are some 10 entries suggested by the CA user for incorporating in the books of accounts, the chartered accountant user needs an assurance that the client has only performed these 10 entries and he has not created any new errors as part of the new version of the data. So for which you can just select any two versions and click compare. So system will auto-populate what are all the new ledgers that are newly surfacing in the latest version. What are all the ledgers which are there earlier now getting deleted? What are all the ledger balances that are modified? So these are all the some 3-4 ledgers where the balances are modified. So this will give a proper track of what are all the changes that happened during the course of audit. So this will be an audit log, audit trail kind of a thing, where during the course of audit, what are all the changes happens, that will get absolute control for the chartered accountant. So that is as far as the preliminary tasks are concerned. Now going to statement preparation, the first task here is preparation of or compilation of fixed assets schedule. So this is a single click operation because all the numbers are already available in the books of accounts itself. So perform asset calculation, you will get to see that the fixed asset schedule is automatically compiled here. But for the first year of using the tool, there is a need for the user to manually feed in the data for this opening cost and opening depreciation. So these two numbers may not be available in the accounting application. So for the first year, the user need to manually feed in. But rest of the items, additions, deletions, and all will be auto-populated from the books of accounts and the entries therein. And the user, if necessary, you can modify this manually so that the trial balance figure should not be altered. Here, there is a control reconciliation here. What is the closing written down value as per the fixed asset schedule? what is the closing balance from the trial balance, and if there is any difference. So that will be highlighted then and there, so that will serve as a control procedure for generating the fixed asset schedule. This is tangible fixed asset, intangible fixed assets. Similar thing can be done. So that is as far as the fixed assets schedule is concerned. Next is one of the complex tasks, namely aging analysis. So aging analysis is a complex arrangement, especially given the fact that a tool like Tally, so that doesn't enforce any sort of a discipline for the customers. So there is no mandatory requirement for setting up the payments against bills. So that is not mandatory. You can have on account, against reference, advance. You can give any remark and get it captured here. So I have one query here. Depreciation calculation is automated. No. So it is it will only capture the information as available in the books of accounts. So depreciation calculation is on our agenda naturally, both company law and IT depreciation. So going forward, we are looking to cover that aspect. But currently, it is not entirely automated. But whatever is there in the underlying books of accounts, it will structure that into the fixed asset schedule appropriately. So now coming to aging analysis. So aging analysis as per schedule 3 that requires aging to be computed based on due dates for the receivable and payable transaction, not based on the transaction date. But because of this flexibility of not matching the payments against bills, so capturing the due dates has become so very complex. So incorrect setup of bills versus payments that again exacerbate the difficulty. So we need to provide a comprehensive framework that can handle all possible scenarios. So there is a 4-tier architecture that is built into the code. The first is for those, assuming you take the case, there are some 500 trade payable receivable ledgers in one particular client. So out of which 300 ledgers, so the client has accurately mapped the payments against bills. So for those 300 ledgers, system will automatically draw the input from the bill-wise pending list that is already available in the report called the outstanding balance report in the accounting application. So that will be used for the purpose of computing the aging. So as I told in the beginning, due date is the parameter for computing the aging as far as Schedule 3 is concerned. So bill-wise pending list along with its due dates that is drawn from the outstanding balance report that will be used for the purpose of aging. That will be an accurate number. And if that is not available, so the next is there is a provision in the accounting application to provide the due date at a voucher level. Transaction level, you can provide the due date. If that is available, that will be used. The next is based on the default credit period. So if all these three things are not available, then Schedule 3 mandates that we need to compile the aging based on transaction date, applying the payments on a first in, first out basis. So all these complexities are built into the code, and now I will just demonstrate how this actually works. I am just performing the aging analysis for this client where there are some 400 plus receivable and payable transactions. So in probably 10-15 seconds time, you will find the system has accurately compiled the aging of trade payable and receivable. So in this 10 seconds time, what the system has done is it has scanned for the previous 4 years of data and then automatically categorized the hundreds of trade payable ledgers exactly in the format in which it is required to be reported in Schedule 3, not due less than 1 year, 1 to 2 years, 2 to 3 years, greater than 3 years, and so on. So it will up exactly, for example, wherever it is greater than 3 years, it will be captured accurately in the financial statement. And similarly, trade receivables, there is a different basket, not due less than 6 months, 6 months to 1 year, 1 to 2 years, and so on. And also there are additional flag-based reporting that is required, like whether it is a disputed debt or is it considered doubtful, whether it is secured or unsecured. So all these flag-based reporting, because these informations are generally not available in the accounting application, for the first time user may have to manually flag this. Then the system will permanently remember this selection and use it in the reporting framework appropriately. And also the basis for this calculation. So how this, for example, this first line item, 3M exim, what is the basis for this calculation? So that also analysis type can be seen here. For example, for this particular client, this was using first in, first out because this one-to-one setup is not done. For the item here, Akriti Fabrics, so it is based on outstanding balance report, meaning that this client, for this customer, the system has accurately mapped, the client has accurately mapped the payments against bills. So what is the basis for each and every line item in the trade receivable and payable, and appropriately it will just calculate the aging analysis much more accurately. So these are all the areas where automation has significantly helped in reducing the cycle time. Imagine a case where there are some thousand receivable and payable transaction, receivable and payable ledgers, where this one-to-one setup is not properly done by the client. So in such a scenario, doing the aging itself could be a separate assignment, probably taking 1 or 2 days to compile this accurately. And then accuracy will again need to be validated and verified. Whereas here, all these things are single click operation. So these are all the power of automation that ensures that substantial cycle time reduction is possible in the pre-audit area. And one more feature here, voucher entry, which is nothing but directly passing the journal vouchers. So there are two methods of handling the changes that happens during the course of audit. One is that you just incorporate the changes in the accounting application and then re-import the entire data all over again. So by doing that, whatever work you have previously communicated, previously completed, everything will be intact. There is absolutely no need for any rework or anything. Every work will be intact, and then seamlessly you will be able to generate financials in hardly less than a minute's time by re-importing the data. That is one way. The other way is assuming the CA wants to directly pass journal vouchers. So there is a voucher entry module here, where instead of going back to the accounting application, especially considering the high pressure environment in the peak audit season, you want to directly pass the journal vouchers, you can directly pass the vouchers here, and that will get immediately incorporated in the Azure balance sheet. And later on, the user can download this journal entries in an Excel format and then send it to clients for incorporating in the books of accounts. So once the normal way where the re-import is done, then the version history will give a trail of what all the changes happened vis-a-vis the previous version. That is one thing. And if you whatever entries that are passed, the journal entries, you can review the journal entries that are passed. That will give a trail of what are all the direct entries that are passed inside the application. So this is one way of handling the changes during the course of audit. So once we completed all these things, we can proceed to generate financial statement, either draft or final statements we can generate. So there are two formats here. Revised Schedule 3 is obviously relevant for corporates. And currently Revised Schedule 3 Division 1, that is the one we cover, not India is format. India is format, the tool is yet to cover. Whereas for corporates, private limited and Division 1, that is AS format or IGAP format, the financials are can be easily generated from the application. For other proprietorship, partnership and all, so the user need to select this regular format. So for other non-corporate entities, the tool actually deploys the format as prescribed by ICAI. So ICAI in 2022 released a recommended format for non-corporate financial statements. So the system actually uses exactly that same format and generate financials for the non-corporate entities. So simply we just select the methodology, that is the format, and then click generate report. Instantly the tool will generate the financials on the fly and present it to the user for his view. So all these disclosures, MSME disclosures on the face of the balance sheet, everything will automatically capture with all the signatory details, name, place, client signature, everything. And P&L balance sheet and cash flow statement is also automatically generated. No manual calculation required here. So entire because 2 years of data is there, obviously cash flow can be automated. So notes will contain all these master data from that is automatically pulled from the client master that is saved initially, and all the aging tables here, trade payable aging. So right underneath the relevant note, system will automatically compile the aging and categorize them into non-disputed MSME, disputed others, and so on for both current year and the previous year. And similarly, trade receivables, there is a different basket, secured, undisputed, considered good, doubtful. So everything will get appropriately captured for both the current year and previous year. And eventually, the last note will be the ratios. There are some 11 ratios, including the likes of debt equity ratio, debt service coverage ratio, so which require us to drill down up to the voucher level. So here, all these ratios are automated. In a single click, you will be able to generate these ratios also. And these blue buttons, these are actually hyperlinks. User can drill down and see the underlying details. And in the once the details page, you can see the list of ledgers that form part of this particular head, Sundaritas. And even here also, we will be able to drill down and see the underlying transaction level, voucher level details. So the idea is whenever any exception that catches the eye of, that is whenever a data is imported into the application, there is no need for anybody to go back to the accounting application at all. Entire audit can be completed remotely from anywhere, anytime, right within the application. No need for even the accounting application to be reviewed because everything, including the ledger view, voucher view, everything is readily available here. So whatever we have seen is a financial statement which is at a rupee, whatever, without rounding off, but then rounding off is a mandatory exercise. So all we need to do here is that simply select the level of rounding, 100,000 lakh or whatever. You simply select the level of rounding and click generate report. So instantly these financials will get converted into the selected rounded level. So all these headers and all will automatically be modified to the selected level of rounding. And these financials are available for download in three formats, namely PDF, Excel, and Word. And PDF is the one which is extensively used because there is no room for any further manipulation or changes to data. So we have taken so much care to ensure that presentation, readability, those aspects are meticulously taken care. There is absolutely no need for users to spend any further time for doing the page numbering, alignment, and stuff like that. So it will come readily usable. All these mandatory information, SIN number, DIN number, UDIN number, whatever is to be captured, everything will be perfectly captured. P&L, balance sheet, and cash flow will automatically fit into a single page. No need for user to do the manual alignment here. And all the shareholder information, promoter shareholding, and followed by all the aging analysis tables, for example, trade payable aging report. So in the PDF, accurately, it will be fitted into the margins appropriately, right underneath the relevant note for the current year as well as the previous year. Fixed asset schedule also will be exactly the same portrait format itself. Similarly, trade receivable aging. So there are all these flag-based reporting, undisputed, disputed, and so on. So everything will get accurately captured here. And these eventually the last note will be the ratios. So all these current ratio, net equity ratio, all these numerator, denominator, what is the ratio, what is the variance. So everything will get automatically captured, and the user has the option to manually record the reason for variance because any variance above 25% requires the reason to be specified. You just type the reason in the application that will be captured and presented right underneath the relevant ratio in the financial statements. So these notes will be followed by the line item wise breakup. So what are the breakup for each of the line item? So that is ledger level details will be available in the details section. So this is as far as the financial statement that is getting prepared in Excel. So I have some query. Please explain sample selection process. Yes, I will be explaining during the course of field work. So this is as far as the financial statement that is getting generated in Excel. But then there are multiple other disclosures that need to go as part of the financial statement. So in the field work, I will be covering ledger scrutiny, voucher verification, tax audit, annexures, and so on. And then I will dive into the audit documentation, before which I will just complete the statement preparation now. So in the statement preparation, one more leftover area is the additional disclosures that need to go as part of the financial statement, especially in the case of companies where there are numerous onerous disclosures that need to be presented as part of the company balance sheet. For doing this, we have just have created this comments and disclosure module where there is this categorization as background of the entity, significant accounting policies, accounting standard disclosures, schedule 3 disclosures, and other disclosures. And each tab will have multiple sections. For example, significant accounting policy, property, plant, equipment. For each and everything, there are multiple templates that covering all the possible scenarios. For example, depreciation, SLM, WDV, useful estimated useful life. Likewise, you can select the appropriate section applicable for this particular client and proceed to save it. And if the user wants to actually update their own templates, so instead of depreciation, you can have your own templates. You can very well update this template in the application and start using it. And there is also a facility where in a single click, user can copy from the previous year or copy from another client. So these are all options which are available. In a single click, you will be able to copy this and start using. And accounting standard disclosures will have all the disclosure templates that are required. And here there is also a reference text that will enable the user to understand the requirement of the standard. For example, employee benefits. The reference text will show that these disclosures are pursuant to so and so paragraphs of AS 15. And the relevant paragraphs of the accounting standard 15 is also copy pasted for ease of reference of the user. And similarly, schedule 3 disclosures and some miscellaneous other disclosures can be added. So once the relevant sections are selected, then the user can export this into a Word document and then probably send it to clients for filling up the data table. So there are a few areas where additional data need to be filled in, like quantity particulars or foreign currency transactions and so on. So the user can actually send it across to the clients for getting the data tables filled in. So this way, the financial statement preparation is much more simplified. So here there is a comparison between a manual and the automated way. So in a manual environment, the problem is that every time for every client, for every trial balance or every balance sheet, every disclosure template, every audit report, there is a need for substantial time spent for application of mind, where the chartered accountant senior team member have to apply their mind and see whether there are any error that has crept in. For each and every time that exercise is required. Whereas here, there is a framework that gets built in. For example, as far as the Excel balance sheet is concerned, so all that is required is for the CA team members, that is the leadership team, spend some time in structuring the export engine to suit the chart of accounts and the requirement of that particular CA firm. Once the import engine is properly classified, that is mapping engine is properly, rule engine is properly classified, then accurately all the clients classification will be much more accurate. Similarly, comments and disclosure, it is probably you can review the existing templates. If any modification is required, you can just do it and save it. So this way a framework is enabled. Application of mind is restricted to only once. Thereafter, whether the firm generates 5 balance sheets or 5,000 balance sheets will become immaterial. Everything will go with the proper structured format classification along with all the necessary disclosures. And this way, even for a large company with say some 500 crore turnover, some 5,000 ledgers and all, financial statements, which is supposed to be the starting point of the audit, which used to take several man hours in a manual exercise, that can be got ready in under 15 minutes time. So less than 15 minutes time, your financials are ready with proper disclosures and templates. So that is the power of automation our users were able to witness using this application. So with this, now I'll just dive into the next segment, namely field work. So before going there, just take a couple of minutes in this issues and doc requests. So these are all the 2 client collaboration modules available. As I told in the beginning, the chartered accountant users will give logins to all the clients. Clients will participate and perform their side of the activity from their remote login ID. And 2 of the client collaboration modules are these issues and doc requests. So the issues are regarding the raising of audit queries relevant to a particular assignment. So this raise issue and raise doc request, these 2 buttons will be prevalent all across the application in every module, whether you are in ledger scrutiny, sample selection, or data validation. Every module you will find these 2 buttons. The idea is whenever the chartered accountant user confronts any exception, you just raise an issue and put it across to the client, and it will become aggregated in the as an open query to the client. Once the user has raised all these queries, you can just click this button, send issues mail. So automatically your email communication will go to the client intimating that your CA has raised so many number of audit queries which are waiting for your resolution. So then the client can log in from their desktop, resolve those queries by adding his comment, any attachment evidence that they would like to do, that can be done. And it will move to the resolved status. Then the CA user can review and close it. And if the CA user at an assistant level or article clerk level, they are unable to take a call, they can mark the query as a pending query so that chartered accountants at the time of final review, they can review the pending queries, pass suitable comments, get any further clarification required from the client and proceed to close these queries. So this way, all the issues that surfaces during the course of audit, everything gets logged properly and gets addressed in a proper structured way. Thereby, the possibility of any issues that is getting missed out due to some extreme work pressure. So all these things are greatly minimized. So that is one of the client collaboration module. The other is doc request, which is intended to make the audit entirely paperless. So all the audit documents like bank statements, confirmations, reconciliations, etc. So everything in a single click, you will be able to raise a doc request. So the clients will be immediately intimated based once you click this button, an automated mail will go. So once you raise a doc request, it will be the open status for the client. Once the client uploads their document, it will move to the submitted status. Thereafter, the CA user will review and approve it. So generally, in a large audit or medium-sized audit, the audit file will become a pile of papers, but nobody is quite sure whether all the necessary documents are available on record or whether everything is duly considered and approved by the team members. So this comfort is very difficult to obtain in a manual environment. Whereas here, it is a workflow-driven facility where the chartered accountants are not only be rest assured that not only the documents called for are available, but also everything has been reviewed and approved by the team members. So besides making the audit entirely paperless, you can absolutely unpaper the audit and everything can be permanently stored on the cloud that can be retrieved at any given point of time. So now I'll just go to the field work. The first one is automation of ledger scrutiny. So especially in an SME audit, considerable amount of time is actually spent on scrutinizing the books of accounts to identify some non-compliance or any wrong, this long overdue items, why, whether it is to be written off, whether it is to be whatever action to be taken. So these are all substantial time that used to be spent on a task called ledger scrutiny that requires the attention of either the CA or a senior team member. This not only again consume time, but also it is prone for human errors and omissions. So what we are trying to do here is that based on some 50 odd rules that are built in, system will automatically scan the entire books of accounts based on two risk perception, namely ledger risk and voucher risks. The ledger risk talks about the risk of a ledger balance that is viewed as risky. Voucher risk talks about the risk of a transaction vouchers that is considered risky. So based on which system will automatically categorize them into high, medium, and low, depending on the rules that are configured in the backend. So currently, as a tool, there are some 50 odd rules that are configured here, but every CA firm can keep on adding to these rule engine. So that over a period, see, assuming a scenario where a CA firm confronts one particular risk for a client, and all they are supposed to do is that parameterize it and put it inside the ledger scrutiny module. So thereafter, for all the subsequent audits, the system will automatically trigger that particular exception that surfaces in every case and present it to the user for decision making. So here, for example, sending creditor opening balances, no transaction during the whole financial year. So naturally, probably this will require some further probe, whether it is really payable or not, or whether it will be written off. From here itself, you will be able to select these items and click raise issue. So automatically, all these things are populated in a single click. You can assign it to a client user who is responsible for answering it, and then submit it. Immediately, it will get aggregated in the client user interface. So similarly, voucher risk will cover all these issues like 40A3 cash transactions greater than 10,000. All these cash transactions are unsecured loan, cash transactions greater than 2 lakh in debtor account, revenue account. So all these procedural compliances like 40A3, 216SS, 216T, 216ST, everything gets built in. Absolutely no need for anybody to spend any amount of time for performing any of these tasks. In addition, there are several other things like journal vouchers in sundry returns, journal vouchers in creditor account, loan account. So generally, what are all the matters which are generally probed as part of the manual ledger scrutiny, most of them are configured in the form of a rule so that system will trigger this, which keeps on evolving. Periodically, we also add more rules. Periodically, every CA firm also can keep on adding rules based on their risk perception. So this way, a ledger scrutiny exercise, which is used to take, say, at least 2-3 man hours per client. So here you can complete it in less than 15-20 minutes and raise all the audit queries to the client. So your basic focus gets drastically reduced. So instead of focusing on, say, 40A3, 260SS, old outstanding items, duplication of entry. So these are all areas which are automated now, and critically, the ledger scrutiny henceforth can be focused only on critical audit points that require focus by the senior members. So this way, considerable amount of time that is getting saved during the course of audit. Similarly, expense variance analysis. This is one of the facility where system will compare the current year expense as a percentage of turnover vis-a-vis the previous years, and wherever there are any variances, it will get highlighted. So here, from other administrative expense, there is a 1,400% variance. So why there is such a variance? So you can investigate and ascertain the root cause and see whether there is a valid justification for this. So generally, these kind of questions often surface during the course of mandatory scrutiny, electronic scrutiny by the tax authorities. Instead, chartered accountants can, during the course of audit itself, provide a valid response for all these queries that can confront in future. Similarly, there is a keyword search feature. You can initiate a free text search or you can initiate a search on any of the key fields. That is also possible. So ideally, voucher narration is a place where it is commonly used. So assuming narration containing, say, penalty. So any expenditure in the nature of penalty is liable for disallowance. But then these vouchers are hidden inside thousands or lakhs of vouchers and difficult to filter out from the accounting application. Whereas here it is a single click operation. You can just, at a click of the button, you are now seeing that there are 6 vouchers which carries the keyword penalty. From here itself, you will be able to select these items and raise an issue. So from here, you can even mark it for further filtration. So you can mark it for disallowance in probably income computation state. You can mark it for reporting in tax audit report. You can mark it for review by any senior person or mark it for consideration next year. So many clients, they will claim that whatever error you pointed out, the CA points out, they will claim that they will rectify these points in the current year. So you can mark it for consideration next year so that during the next year audit, chartered accountant can revisit these issues and see whether the client has properly fulfilled his promises in the last year. So all these utilities are built in such a way that chartered accountant user spends the least amount of time for performing these mundane elementary tasks, which otherwise in a manual environment takes a big toll of his time. Next comes voucher verification, which is a sampling technique in order to ensure compliance to SA 530. So audit standard 530 audit sampling, which stipulates that sample selection for voucher verification has got to be only based on scientific sample selection methods. You cannot randomly choose, say I do April, May, June, and so on. So that is not possible or not permitted. So here, because we have the entire voucher dump structured and readily available, so all we need to do is create a voucher iteration, voucher verification iteration. So here, these 3 sampling techniques are approved in SA 530: random sampling, systematic sampling, and stratified sampling. So out of these 3, whatever the user chooses, so you can choose any one of them and proceed to give a condition suitably, so that the voucher verification iteration will pop up like this. And generally, stratified sampling is commonly used here because there is ample room for slicing and dicing the data in such a way that large value of the population is covered with minimum number of sample size. For example, you take the case of iteration number 3 here. So the total population is for 32,205 vouchers for a total value of some 576 crores. That is the test case that we are seeing now. Out of which, some 686 vouchers selected as sample for covering some 224 crores. So almost 40% of the value is now covered with hardly 2% of the samples. So these are all possible for creating the iteration. Once the iteration is so created, there is no need for somebody to take a printout and use blue pencils and all. You can drill down and see the vouchers one by one on the screen. So simply the user need to open one by one all these vouchers in the exact form, whatever the description, narration, everything, voucher number, voucher type, everything as available in the accounting application will be shown to the user on the screen. And the user can mark it as paused, or mark it as error found, or mark it as voucher missing, or mark it as marked for review by any senior person. You can record any that is whatever comments you would like to add, you can do it. So all these things are possible, and there is a permanent log available. Permanent log available for this at a voucher level. So you can see that previously marked as passed by so on such and such dates. So there is a voucher level log that is available. What is the initial outcome? What is the final outcome? Everything will be available. And once the verification is complete, once the sample verification is complete, chartered accountant users can proceed to generate a report. So which will contain a summary of what is the population size, what is the error that is rectified, what are the missing vouchers, error that are identified during the course of voucher verification, what are the missing vouchers, whether the error is rectified or not. So all these corrected misstatement, uncorrected misstatement, everything will get populated in the page as a single page PDF report, PDF or Excel. So this report will give a conclusive evidence that whether based on which the chartered accountant can conclude that whether the error rate is within the tolerance limit or not, and proceed to decide accordingly. If it is below tolerance limit, you can proceed to approve this voucher iteration and close it. Or if it is above the tolerance limit, then the user can actually create one more voucher iteration by enhancing the sample size probably to 10-20% or so, and then proceed with verification to arrive at a conclusion. So this way, the entire workflow of generating a sample to eventual verification of the sampled items vis-a-vis the underlying documentary proof and marking the results of the verification on the voucher with permanent log, and also generating a summary report. Everything gets happened in this voucher verification module seamlessly, and end-to-end complies to SA 530 as far as voucher verification is concerned. So the next one is tax audit annexures. So these are all again areas where considerable amount of time is spent for manual exercises and data entry. Because tax audit report is a place where chartered accountants certifies plenty of numbers as true and correct. But this true and correct is an extraordinarily onerous responsibility. But in practical terms, these tasks are performed or delegated to article 11 audit assistants who do manual data entry, and manual data entry is obviously prone for manual errors. And any error in tax audit report is a cause for serious concern for the chartered accountant, especially given the kind of electronic tax administration that is involved. So what we try to solve here is this problem of data entry. So currently we cover some 9 annexures here: 40A3, 40A3A, 40A2B, 43B, 3615A, 260 SST, ST, and ratios. So all these 9 annexures, the system actually, because all these things are available, 40A3 and all, system will automatically generate. For something like 40A2B related parties, for the first time, user need to select the ledger for related party. So then system will, thereafter, year after year, system will instantly compile the result accurately, and which can be downloaded and uploaded into whatever filing it is. So the idea is not to reinvent the wheel, because there are already settled tools being used by chartered accountant for the last mile push into the government portal. Whereas the problem is the data entry, that is what we are trying to solve. So at least in these dire reductions, chartered accountant users can be rest assured that there is no room for any data entry error, because data seamlessly flow from the underlying books of accounts to the ultimate output annexure. And currently, 3 of the important and extremely complex annexures, namely TDS, GST, and depreciation. So these 3 are extremely complex, but then these are yet to be taken up. Naturally, going forward, we will cover all these 3 annexures as well. Currently, some 9 annexures covered. Gradually, we will cover more and more annexures, so that bulk of the 3CD annexures can be automatically and seamlessly generated from the application. So this is as far as the fieldwork section is concerned. Now I'll just go to the audit program automation. That is relating to audit documentation. Before going there, I just have one question: is free for doing the work and getting free demo only? So the app is not free, obviously, so because it's a cloud application that incurs enormous amount of cost. But there is a MOU signed by with ICAI committee of members in practice, pursuant to which substantial discounts are being made available as per MOU deal. So you can visit cmpbenefits.icai.in, and where you will get to know the commercial details. So now I'll just dive into the audit program automation here. So as I told in the beginning, audit documentation is an extremely serious pain point. Nowadays, bulk of the focus is entirely on the audit documentation front. Thanks to whatever NAFRA and all other whatever regulatory landscape that is rapidly changing. So our idea is, based on our evaluation, we understood that this is a high skilled operation. So because this requires enormous amount of effort and time to be spent by a senior member. So it cannot be delegated to junior assistants, because so much of knowledge and expertise is required for doing this. So because of which bulk of the time of the senior team members are being used or being consumed for maintaining this document. That is why people are finding it extremely difficult. That is number one. So as a solution, we arrived at is to provide a framework where bulk of this work can be delegated to the down the line team members, and the chartered accountants and the senior team members can simply monitor the progress from a dashboard view with built-in maker checker approver framework, so that wherever necessary, so the chartered accountants on exception reporting basis, they can intervene and make suitable modifications, while bulk of almost 80% of the work gets done by assistants, junior assistants, who will be able to do bulk of the work. So we built all these checklists and templates. So whatever checklists and templates issued by ICAI, we have configured, predominantly adapted the ICAI formats here. So the idea is to enable the chartered accountant users to delegate this work to the down the line team members, get things done, almost 80% of it, and monitor the generation of audit documentation as the audit progresses, rather than complete the audit work and then after a couple of months when free time is there, we revisit the audit documentation. That is not required at all. So I'll just take one example, preliminary audit tasks. So under three category, engagement, initiation, and so on. So the first step is for the client to seek the consent of the auditor. So that is the first step in the engagement initiation. So letter seeking, this has to be uploaded by the client. This template will be available in the client user interface. As I told in the beginning, all these templates are, the clients are connected. All the relevant templates are available in the client UI. So they will be able to download this, sign and upload this. Once it is downloaded and uploaded, it will be visible in the Chartered Accountants portal. So the next is auditor's consent letter. So here you need to simply review this, and all these formats are again preloaded. So all these templates are prepared by a team of curated senior professionals, where if necessary, every CA firm can substitute with their own format. So what we provide is a framework with content that are preloaded, ready to use content. And once it is, you can either use it as such or you can modify and use it, so that the framework will provide ease of use as well as delegation of work for the down the line team members. So the next is auditor appointment letter, auditor appointment resolution. These are things which should come from the client. Next comes acceptance and continuance. So these are mandatory procedures to be performed in each and every audit. So there is no choice whether or not to do this. So all these checklists, audit preconditions, integrity management, change in auditor. So all these checklists are pre-populated. With you can expand and see all these checkpoints, and the user can manually select the responses. If you want to add any comments, so you can record your comments. If you want to add any attachment for a line item, you can add it, because generally the checklist will contain a column audit work paper reference, where some number is mentioned, which is cross-referenced and indexed in the audit file. So all these hazards are totally eliminated here. So you, at a line item base, you can attach the relevant documentation there and there. And there is a facility where you can record the conclusion of this particular step and proceed to save it. And there is also one more useful utility called apply default responses, because in most cases, at least 80-90% of the cases, these audit standard checklists, the responses are more or less uniform across years and across clients. So instead of, in order to prevent the down the line team members from committing any errors, so they can simply apply default responses, and so that all the responses will be automatically applied based on the default responses. And the chartered accountant user, only in exceptional circumstances, wherever required, they will be able to intervene and modify the responses. So once a maker has completed this checklist, they can submit it for review, and again it will go for approval. And if engagement quality EQCR, so there is a 4-tier architecture that is built in: maker, checker, approver, and EQCR, based on which chartered accountant can get these things done. And there is a log at every stage. So every stage you will get a log, and that will enable the chartered accountants to keep monitoring the work. So, and there is all these percentage completion. What is the stage, whether it is submitted for review, review is confirmed, approval done, EQCR done. So everything will be available in this dashboard view. So similarly, the engagement initiation, the next is engagement letter general. So that is uh, engagement letter general is again to be initiated and signed by the chartered accountant. So again, these formats are again all pre-loaded here. Elaborate contents are pre-loaded here. Simply you need to fill up some basic things, and if any changes to be done, that can be done. And then you can simply proceed to sign and upload. Once the CA has uploaded it, it will be available for the client to countersign it. Engagement letter for internal financial control. So there is a different engagement letter to be signed for IFCO, that is also pre-populated. Independent confirmation. So every year, both the chartered accountant, that is the engagement partner, as well as all the team members, so they need to sign a declaration of independence. So imagine what is the settled law is that what is not documented is not done. So every year for every client, so these are mandatory documentation which we need to sign. So instead of doing it manually and spend countless man hours, so it is better to use the built-in checklists and templates. This way, there is a great amount of possibility for saving substantial amount of man hours in the process. So that is as far as this preliminary engagement work is concerned. And the next, similarly, audit planning, there are various sections: checklist for team planning meeting, minute of team planning meeting, checklist for overall audit strategy memo, minutes of overall audit strategy, SA 300, planning of an audit in financial statements. So all these SA checklists we just simply followed ICAI recommended formats. So ICAI has in 2023 released a standards on auditing checklist. It's a 400-page document where they have given checklists for each and every audit standard. So we have automated them entirely inside the application so that it will be most efficiently and effectively used by the users of the application, thereby saving considerable amount of time rather than relying on whatever Excel sheets, email communication, and so on. And once the user has completed this particular checklist, obviously this can be downloaded in the PDF and saved as part of the audit work papers. So whatever responses, what are all the comments that has been done, what is the conclusion recorded, see any evidence or attachment that is considered. So everything will be available in the form of a single page or whatever the PDF document, which obviously will form part of the audit work papers. So similarly, there are further things called audit standard checklists, SA checklists. There are elaborate audit standard checklists, accounting standard checklists, and procedures under SA. So here you will see all the SA checklist, SA 200 agreeing to the terms of see all these checklists are pre-populated for ease of reference. So you can simply proceed and start using it. So this way, bulk of the audit work, audit documentation work gets automated and substantial amount of time savings possible, but also it enables delegating the work to down the line team members with a little bit of training. You can get this work delegated and got done, and with the maker checker approval framework that is built in, it keeps a tab of the audit documentation generation that is possible during the course of the audit itself. Instead of completing the assignment and then come back and compile the audit documentation, that is not at all required. And as part of the next leg, that is so whatever checklists and templates are now built in, that tool is already there. And currently we have started working on integrating the numbers from the audit workflow. So because the financials are already there, we try to integrate the numbers. The first step is materiality. So in 2022, 2023, I think the ICAI has released a utility for determining materiality. So we just simply automated the ICAI utility inside the application. So this materiality is actually meant to automate the ICAI materiality utility where all the risk perception, whether it is a new engagement, whether it is a startup, whether concerns. So all these things are capable. You can select what is the risk for this particular item. Use of complex financial arrangement, it is either low or high. Based on which you can your risk parameters get suitably modified here. So based on which the risk, whether it is medium or high, that will get populated. Once it is done, the next will be compute the overall and performance materiality for which the numbers from the financial statement that will get auto-populated here. So you can select the parameter for fixing the materiality, whether it is total revenue, total expense, gross profit or not. You can have either single parameter or multiple parameter, whatever is possible. And once you've selected, for example, total revenue is selected, and the materiality number, you can have either 0.5, 0.75 or 1%. So these are all again as per the format that is given by ICAI. So depending on whatever is the overall materiality that is selected here. So the bottom down the line figures will populate what is the overall materiality is 1 crore 12 lakhs. Performance materiality haircut it's 40%. So performance materiality is some 67 lakhs. Trivial materiality is 5%, specific materiality and all. And the next step will be to select the categories for specific materiality. Once you have selected it, then the summary will give a summary of what exactly is the population, what exactly is the materiality, what is the risk, what is the overall materiality, and so on. So up to this level, the product is ready and released and made available. And currently, the team is actually working on further strengthening this audit documentation module by seamlessly carrying the numbers from the underlying books of accounts. And once the materiality is done, next will be to select the financial statement line item, select FSLI for testing. So automatically any line item above the performance materiality that will get automatically flagged for mandatory testing. So once it is flagged for mandatory testing, then it will automatically be populated for this. There is something called audit of FSLI. So here, each and every thing, for example, audit of equity, audit of borrowings, audit of trade payable, audit of liability. So here, so there'll be a user interface both for testing as well as there'll be a checklist that is pre-populated. So for the testing module, the user will be able to select and mark the potential misstatement. The user will be shown only those line items. Other liabilities means only those line items will be shown where they can drill down up to the transaction level. And from there, user can mark the potential misstatement. User can raise an audit memo and so on. So all these things will get aggregated as part of the audit summary of audit findings page, where the chartered accountant, the senior engagement partner, will get a glimpse of what are all the potential misstatements which are identified and marked by the users. He can review that, and if it is found to be truly a misstatement, he can mark it as identified misstatement, and then it will be again categorized as whether corrected or uncorrected. So you can mark it as corrected or uncorrected, and depending on that, it will give a summary of information as to what is the total number of potential misstatement identified during the course of audit. What is the potential misstatements identified during the course of audit? What are all the corrected misstatements, identified misstatements, corrected misstatements, uncorrected misstatements? So all these informations with linkage from the underlying books of accounts to financial statement to materiality to FSLI to summary. So this linkage. So this exercise of linking these numbers from the underlying books of accounts and then taking it up to the summary page. So this is an ongoing development which is underway. Over the next couple of months, the modules will get released. Currently, the tool is built with all these checklists and procedures which are preloaded into the application. Once this linking of numbers is also up and running, then this will present a comprehensive framework where the conclusion, the audit conclusion, which is otherwise a subjective exercise, so that is being made as objective as possible. So that is as far as this audit program automation is concerned. So before going further on this, I'll just, is it possible to determine materiality level and assess the risk? Yes, that I have just, it was a question before I just taken the materiality. I think I have already answered this question. So these are all the features right now we have in the application. So it is more to do with solving the problems of the chartered accountant, both during the pre-audit area like financial statement preparation, aging analysis, and so on, and also provide a comprehensive framework for maintaining audit documentation in line with the regulatory expectation. So that is as far as the module is concerned. In a couple of slides, I just sum up and then I'll take up the final questions if it is. Yeah. So one of the core objectives is optimizing skilled resources. So through automation of repetitive tasks, so we just try to free up the time of partners and senior staff to a great extent. So ledger scrutiny is automated, financial statement is entirely de-skilled. Even the article clerk can complete the financials in under 10 minutes time. Bulk of the uh, tax audit annexures. So preparation is entirely de-skilled. So any low-level person can complete it. So thereby we save considerable amount of precious time for the chartered accountants and their senior team members. And this provides a framework approach where instead of focusing on each and every occasion, each and every instance, so there is a framework that enables the chartered accountant to focus on one occasion, either setting the rule engines, ledger scrutiny rules, or comments and disclosures. Everywhere you just focus on setting the framework to suit the individual requirements. Thereafter, the system will take care. Irrespective of the volume, whether it is 10 balance sheets or 1,000 balance sheets, system will take care. So that way, great amount of optimization of resources can happen. Multi-point data entry, we try to provide a solution for data entry. Tax audit annexures generation is one such area, and we also provide integration with a couple of IT filing utility where the financials are exported into Excel, which will be downloaded in the IT filing. In this way, we try to minimize data entry, that is the root cause for errors in the audit workflow. And there is also a built-in framework for task and team management. So that is a built-in framework where chartered accountants can delegate this work to a team member and monitor the target dates and due dates much more efficiently. The chartered accountant user can bring each and every type of assignments into the portal and allocate work to the team members with built-in maker, checker, approver, and EQCR. So this framework is built in. So every time it gets logged. So if somebody can submit for maker can submit for review, it gets reviewed with comments. and then it can go for approval. Again, comments are coming, either accepted or rejected. Again, necessary, it can go for engagement quality control review. So there is a great deal of accountability across the organization, besides making besides providing absolute clarity on the ongoing assignments, both for the chartered accountant leadership team, but also for each and every member of the audit team. So every team member need not have to wait for any oral instructions from any senior or the chartered accountant. Everybody, once they sign on the morning, they will get to know what are the tasks which are due today, what are the dues which are overdue, and so on. So this way, communication is becoming inter-se communication across the CA firm that gets much more efficiently managed. I believe I'll just check whether there are any questions. Checklist for accounting standard is also inbuilt. Yes. So there are built-in accounting standard checklists also available. How to get AMPT? I don't understand. The question is not understandable. Please kindly elaborate. I will be able to respond to this. How to register for this software, and we will receive a demo link for practice. Yes, that is the question. Please visit cmpbenefits.ica.org, cmpbenefits.assureai.org, where you will get a link, audit automation tool AssureAI, where you will validate the one-time email OTP. Once you verify the OTP, then you will get within a couple of hours, you will get an email with the PDF presentation containing all the details about the application, how you can sign up for the free trial, and so on. So that is as far as the questions are concerned. Now I'll just sum up and close. So coming to the tangible benefits, so it eventually results in substantial time savings in mundane, repeatable tasks, especially financial statement preparation, which used to be a significantly time-consuming job. Now, even for a large client, financial statement preparation can be completed in under 15 minutes time. And the data ingestion from Tally, Zoho, and other trial balance for other clients also, we are currently seriously working on providing a generic Excel-based import. So probably within the next 1 month, we will be releasing it to production. So it is in the final stages of testing. So once it is done, we will be releasing it to production. Thereafter, even the SAP and Oracle data can also be imported entirely. And single-click aging analysis, ratio analysis, automation of ledger scrutiny, client communication becomes much more efficient and easy. So task management module and significant time and effort savings. So that is the bottom line as far as the tangible benefits are concerned. Intangible benefits, there is a great amount of flexibility and remote working that is possible given the fact that this is being a cloud application. So many of the users, that is the CA firms using Azure, they have actively started hiring full-time resources from anywhere. So on-premise is no longer a requirement. So many of them actually started full firms in Bombay actually hiring from Nagpur, Indore, and so on. So all these things are being enabled because of the cloud technology. So eventually, the better client satisfaction will eventually result in peace of mind for the chartered account. That is our ultimate goal. So there is a great amount of discussion among the professional and regulatory framework about expectation gap, performance gap, knowledge gap, delivery gap, and so on. So, but we believe there is a significant technology gap. And if this technology gap is properly fulfilled, there is ample scope for reducing the gaps in other areas. So that is what we are set out. And we are very much cognizant this is not the end of the road, still a lot of work to do. So whatever we have done is probably just a small fraction of the problems that we are trying to solve for only a niche segment of small media practitioner firms. So, but then there are still more to be done, integration with more and more tools like large ERP systems and so on. TDS, GST, and depreciation. So these three are extremely complex use cases, but at the time entirely automatable. Given the fact that we have the entire data dump and structured data that is available. So all these three modules are entirely automatable. Something which takes say 2-3 hours, we should be able to complete it in single click, like aging analysis. So all these three are automatable. But given the fact that so initially we have started working on TDS, but then based on the feedback of the existing users, the team has deviated and started working on the audit documentation and strengthening of the audit documentation model. That is the ongoing development like materiality testing, audit procedure framework, single click summary memorandum, and so on. So these are all the work that is going on. So once the audit documentation with linking of numbers is done, the ultimate objective is to provide a single click audit work paper compilation. So once that is done, in a single click, all the audit engagement communication, right from engagement initiation to audit report, everything will get downloaded in the form of a single zip file. So these are all very much possible. Ongoing development over the next couple of months, we will certainly cover this. And we need to go ahead and cover India's financials as well. So even though there is a small percentage of India's users, hardly some 50,000 companies in the country having India's, but then that is the serious problem area where all the listed companies, the expectation of audit documentation is much more. So once we are done with audit documentation, actually we go towards India's also. So that sums up my presentation, sir. I'll just take up any questions and I'll just answer. So, is the software help in GSTR 9? As I told, the GST, TDS, and depreciation. So these three areas we have not yet taken up. Naturally, these are very much high on our agenda, but once we are done with audit documentation part, all these three things gradually will complete. TDS reconciliation with 26. Again, TDS question I think I have answered. India is, yes, India is also we have not yet done. The instant updation happening whenever changes in law, compliance, etc., how to ensure. So wherever there is any changes that are brought about vis-a-vis, for example, the Schedule 3 was amended a couple of years ago. So whenever any change obviously comes in, naturally it is our job to update the database, like some things that are getting modified, formats that are getting changed. But one of the point to be considered is that the area that we cover is not prone to frequent changes. Like for example, GST or income tax, where the changes are at least very, very frequent. Whereas in the case of Schedule 3 and all company law compliance, changes are not so very frequent. So that's as far as the question is concerned. Is it help in income tax return? So no, we don't provide income tax return filing utility. What we provide is integration with a couple of tools. I think one Genius is integrated and one more, I think some tool is integrated, where the user will be able to download the financial statement generated assured in an Excel format, which can be imported into the filing utility. So that integration is what we are working on. There is our core focus, as I told in the initial stage, is that our focus is to solve the problems which has not been otherwise previously solved. So there are already settled tools for last mail push into the portal like 3CD, income tax return and all. So currently it is not the time for us to reinvent the wheel. So what we try to provide is integration so that data entry getting minimized and people continue to work with their respective tools. How much average time would be taken to complete the whole process of audit? So it all entirely depends on the size of the entity and the nature of work. So that you can bifurcate the audit tasks into two. So one is pre-audit and the actual audit. So in the pre-audit, we say what are all the work we do is financial statement preparation, aging analysis, ledger scrutiny and all. So in the pre-audit stage, if it takes say 1 day for one customer in the normal traditional way, so here the pre-audit segment can be entirely completed in 30 minutes time. So that is as far as the time saving is concerned. If we go to during the audit, there also even for testing of the financial state line items, maintaining the audit documentation, communicating with the client. So everywhere there is potential time savings that is very much possible. Will we get the recording of this class? I am not sure. I think ICAI probably provide the recording. I need to get it.
The YouTube link within a week. So on the WhatsApp group.
Okay,
So no
okay.
need to worry.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you, sir. So any offer for CAs, there is a question. So please visit cmpbenefits.icai.in. So where you just click the button, audit automation tool Assure AI. So where you will get all the details. So there is a 50% discount as per being offered to chartered accountants who validate their OTP from ICAI CMP benefits page. So all the details are available in the cmpbenefits.assureai.in, cmpbenefits.ica.org website. So I think I have answered all the questions up to this stage. So over to you, sir. Please take over and proceed, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for this insightful session.
Thank you.
As earlier told that the recording of this session will be available on the WhatsApp group, so participants need not to worry about anything. It is taken care of. And Dhananjay sir, thank you so much for this session, insightful session. and we value your expertise in this software and overall. And through this webinar, you showcased the same. Thank you so much for your time, and we wish to
Thank
see
you.
you in future basis, sir. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Thank you everyone for the patient listening for over 1.5 hours. Thanks a lot.